Greetings, guys. Welcome to the Wealth for Real YouTube channel. I'm your host, Christopher Anastasio. It is Wednesday, January 31st, 2024, through the first month of the year. That went fairly quickly. I wanted to make a video for you guys today about a really interesting paper I'd been meaning to read for a long time. Finally got to it a couple weekends ago. Loosely titled The Precautionary Principle, that involved, of the many authors of the paper, the author that stood out to me the most, because I follow him and mention him a lot on this channel, is Nassim Taleb. And I'm going to go ahead and share. My face is probably going to disappear, but I'm going to share the paper with you guys here in the background, and want to zero in on one particular section. But when I go over to the paper, let me give you a little bit of background on it. Bear with me one second. Okay, so basically, what you're looking at here, guys, that's actually a section I want to show you in a moment. You can see the title, the full title here, The Precautionary Principle with Application to Genetic Modification of Organisms. The lead author, of course, Nassim Taleb, shown right there. Some other very notable individuals here I came to realize as I learned more about this paper. A lot of individuals here, some of these individuals involved in like climate change, things like that. The environment, there was an interesting cross-section here to the authors of this paper. You could see the paper's now almost 10 years old, came out in the fall of 2014. And what's so interesting about it, guys, is, at the very top level, it's a really interesting look and dive into the principle of, when you face the risk of ruin, for example, the extinction of the human race, how you cannot use traditional statistical and probability-based models, because you may feel from all those models that you're absolutely correct and so on and so forth, but even the tiniest chance that you're wrong leads to complete ruin, i.e. the extinction of the human race. You have to throw those models out. You can't trust them. You have to err on the side of not taking the prescribed action, okay, and letting somebody who advocates for the prescribed action prove beyond the shadow of a doubt that they will be successful, that it'll turn out right, whatever the case may be. Okay, so what you see here, I want to read this one little part here before I get to the section I want to show you guys. This really kind of encapsulates it. The aim of the precautionary principle is to prevent decision makers from putting society as a whole, or a significant segment of it, at risk from the unexpected side effects of a certain type of decision. The PP states that if an action or policy has a suspected risk of causing severe harm to the public domain, such as general health or the environment, and in the absence of scientific near certainty about the safety of the action, the burden of proof about absence of harm falls on those proposing the action. It is meant to deal with effects of absence of evidence and the incompleteness of scientific knowledge in some risky domains. So that's really what this whole thing is about and why it's significant. As a subtext to that, what was interesting about this paper, if you follow Nassim Taleb, is that, as you see here, it was a takedown of GMOs, genetically modified organisms, and specifically traced back to entities like Monsanto, who went on in the later 2010s, like 2015, 16, 17, I believe it was, to really come after Nassim Taleb, particularly on social media sites, platforms, etc., coming after his credibility, his ability to comment on GMOs, things like that. He was attacked every which way. And if you followed him on social media during that time, you invariably would have seen some of these exchanges that he had with some of those individuals who were either openly or covertly representing organizations like Monsanto and advocates for GMOs. So that's kind of a subtext to this paper and what kind of fell out of it. So I think, just want to make sure the recording's still going here. So here's the thing, guys. So this paper, absolutely recommend reading it to you. If you're a fan of Taleb, if you're interested in statistics, probability, markets, the environment, any of these types of things that could be borne upon by the precautionary principle, I recommend you read this paper. But the thing that I really wanted to show today, and it's probably not the last time I'm going to come back to this thing here on page, it's not the last time I'm going to come back to the paper, But what I want to show you guys here on page 5 under this subsection, why interdependence brings fat tails. Now, fat tail is my understanding. I'm a history major, not a mathematician. On the bell curve where you have that fat middle part, in the outlying regions of the bell curve, you have these sort of aberrations that can occur, black swan events, rare events, things like that, that create, a huge tail, like a spiking on the chart that's fat because it's large, it's tall, whatever you want to call it. And so that's the slang term for outlying spiking on the bell curve is a fat tail. That's my understanding of it. I might have butchered that, but that's how I've come to understand it from Taleb's writings and me following him and stuff like that. The reason I want to talk to you about this paper today, guys, is because all we hear when it comes to the economy, when it comes to the financial situation of the country, et cetera, is we've avoided a recession, we've got a soft landing, inflation's under control, housing market's doing good, doesn't look like anything bad's about to happen. If you've lived long enough, and I've lived 48 years now, that sounds very familiar to what we heard in 05, 06, and 07 before the big collapse in 08 and 09. And a specific paragraph in this paper that I want to read to you guys sparked that connection that made me want to make this video for you guys. So under this section right here, page 5, left column, reading this section right here that I just highlighted, consider the global financial crash of 2008. As financial firms became increasingly interdependent during the latter part of the 20th century, small fluctuations during periods of calm masked the vulnerability of the system to cascading failures. Instead of a local shock in an independent area of the system, i.e. commercial real estate, we experienced a global shock with cascading effects. The crisis of 2008, in addition, illustrates the failure of evidentiary risk management. Since data from the time series beginning in the 1980s exhibited stability, causing the period to be dubbed the Great Moderation, it deceived those relying on historical statistical evidence, unquote. And you see the whole section here, kicks off talking about interdependence, central limit theorem does not apply, aggregate variation become much more severe due to mutual reinforcement. If you lived through 2008, if you were even halfway paying attention, you lived through the 08 recession, 09, you know exactly what he's talking about here. This thing probably raised the hackles on your neck just from what I read there. Okay, guys, so, this is something that, unfortunately, while I was looking at the paper, you guys couldn't see all my gesticulations and stuff. But so I was saying, the paper should have raised the hackles on your neck and really gotten you thinking, are we in a repeat of 2008 where we're hearing lots of good stuff from supposed experts about the economy and the avoidance of the recession and the soft landings and all this stuff. And meanwhile, the real risk here is buried beneath and out of view from these models that are being used by the people saying these things, just like what happened 15, 16 years ago. And so I don't think I've come across something that so succinctly, I'm going to go back over to the paper, so succinctly called to mind the 2008 situation and why we should be paying attention once again to what happened in 2008 as we look to what might happen here in 24, 25, 26, 27, and beyond. When you think about, I know I've put out there, guys, a couple times at different platforms, the chart showing commercial real estate debt maturity from 2023 to 2028, and it is ugly. There's nearly $3 trillion of debt maturity happening there. When I look at that, I don't think to myself, oh, commercial real estate is screwed, everything else is fine. I think to myself about what this paper is talking about: interdependence, interconnectedness. How will something in the commercial real estate market ripple outward into other sectors and segments of the economy and hurt those things as well and create a holistic, globalized meltdown? Okay, guys, so read the paper, check out Precautionary Principle. I've posted it in a few places. If you hadn't seen where I posted it along the way, you can easily find it with a Google search. It comes up very quickly. But if you do have trouble finding it, getting it, whatever, just message me at the bottom of this video. I'll get it to you guys. Really recommend you read it. Recommend you read Taleb and his writings if you haven't done that. Recommend you start with Fooled by Randomness, The Black Swan, Anti-Fragile, go through the whole series. That's a guy that you want to be familiar with as we head into this potentially troubled waters in the second half of the 2020s and with what I believe lies ahead. So, as always, guys, I appreciate you watching the video. Appreciate you consuming the content. For all the subscribers, can't thank you enough. If you haven't subscribed, please hit the subscribe button below. But would love to see a comment or a question from you guys about this issue, precautionary principle, interdependence, commercial real estate, the whole thing that I went over in this video. Very much appreciate it. So hope you guys had a great January. Hope February kicks off well for you tomorrow. And I will talk to you guys again soon. Thanks so much. Have a good night.